Thank you all for joining us today for the workshop, How to Prepare for an Academic Job Talk. Joining us today are Dr. Kevin Conrad, Assistant Professor and Director of the Nevada Isotope Geo Laboratory, and Dr. Levant Tatissi, Executive Director of Undergraduate Research. They will be answering your questions on how to prepare for an academic job talk, and I'm going to hand it over to them now to introduce themselves and share a little bit about their background, and then we'll begin taking your questions. So, Dr. Conrad, will you please start us off?
Hi there. I'm Kevin Conrad. I just started at UNLV back last October. I actually appeared here in person last March, so it was a weird system. I got the job in February of 2020, and then it got pulled for 6 months, and then frozen, and then unfrozen finally. But I was had the great fortune to actually get an academic job. But I'm a marine geologist, and I mostly take remote operated submarines down into the ocean basin, and I explore volcanoes and the interaction between biology and geology and other cool stuff down there. Good to meet you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Levant Tatissi. Like Jessica said, I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Undergraduate Research here at UNLV, but I'm also a professor of anthropology. So my journey, academic journey, actually started in Turkey, where I'm the native of the country. And I had the first round of graduate degrees. Then I was moved to the United States, the right part of the world, to repeat higher degrees, master's and PhD degrees in anthropology. And then in 2007, while I was still in ABD, I applied to UNLV's anthropology department, and was invited for a campus visit. And I remember the date precisely. On March 19, 2007, I gave a job talk. And after a couple of weeks, I was offered the job, and I moved here. So I was tenured in 2013 and promoted to full professor last year. But in 2019, my career took a weird twist, and I didn't see that coming, so be open-minded. And I moved to the darker side, and I became an administrator. And since 2019 January, I'm on this campus overseeing undergraduate research activities and capacity building here. So thank you for the invitation, Nev and Jessica.
Thank you. So, Dr. Conrad, you probably have the most recent experience going through this process. And Dr. Tatissi, your perspective and your advice is going to be one of no, but being on both ends, right? Being on search committees, and also having gone through the process in a very unique we're both right in unique circumstances, because Dr. Conrad, it was pre and overlapping during COVID, right?
That's true. Yeah, I chaired actually a position, a committee, and hired an assistant professor in 2008. So I think that's a good point. I can also bring some.
For sure. What you all on the committees would be looking for. So to get us started, how important really is the academic job talk, talking about, from the committee's perspective, or even if you are chairing, how important is the job talk?
I'm curious to learn the most recent experiences and approaches. So I'm just going to let Dr. Conrad go.
Yeah, do you think it was really have you participated and versus other times when you haven't participated in a job talk, how influential and beneficial did you find it?
Yeah, so I haven't been on the committee side, and I've seen a few though during my graduate studies. And then of course real quick, can I explain what a job talk is? I just saw in the chat, so that might be a good place to start.
Oh yeah, thank you.
So in any academic job, when you're applying for it, it's a long process. It's not kind of like a standard job with just an interview. They usually fly you out. You spend 2 days meeting everyone in the department. You get shipped around on like a conveyor belt, essentially from office to office, constantly talking to people. And then you have to give at least an hour-long presentation about your research, some aspect of it. And then it's typically not required, but as I'll suggest, you should also include at least 5-10 minutes of what you plan on doing in that department if you're hired. And yeah, it's a vital hard because not everyone in the department, not everyone involved will see you or meet you in person. And that could be the only opinion they have of you that their vote goes towards is that talk. So that's essentially what an academic job talk is. Sometimes if you're in a STEM department or any department, I guess, you'll see those every now and then advertised that if they're hiring, they haven't been hiring this year, but you'll have a series of talks on a similar subjects because they're hiring someone on that subject. What was the initial question? Oh, how important is it? Yeah, the job talk's, I think, incredibly important. It's what it's the best chance for you to control how you are seen by someone else in the department, everyone in the department, essentially. What you can put forward to show what research you do, why it's important, why you think it's good, what you plan on doing, and why you think you fit into the department. You can kind of get all that into an hour, and then hopefully make yourself look good while you're doing it.
But I hear you saying, Dr. Conrad, it's in essence like the moment where like you are in control, right? Like other aspects, it's really what ball is thrown at you, what question is thrown at you, but this is where like you have the stage, right? And you set the tone for what you want to talk about, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
organize your own presentation. So
And also, at a certain extent, it shows your ability to teach too, because you
Right.
can put together a clear and coherent set of slides and present clearly and keep everybody on board throughout the talk. That's also an important aspect.
So what are some of the first things you should think about as you're preparing your job talk? I think you kind of started to tap in on one, right? That
Which one?
if we're to teach this material.
Yeah, exactly. You want to show that not only do you know about it, but that you can break it down. So one important aspect when I was presenting my work is, anyone who does science knows it's really complicated and there's nuances and there's caveats and everything is just blah, blah, blah. But I wanted to make sure this whole talk, I can keep an undergraduate student with me the entire time. So I broke it down. I made it seem simpler when I had to, just to show that I can teach a complex subject, and actually keep people on board. As opposed to sometimes when I've seen these talks, they'll start off broad and then instantly go into talking about a detail about a single mineral that like a dozen people know about. And so you just want to avoid those kind of things. And I'll let Tatissi.
Do you want me to answer the first question too, or just jump on the second question?
Well, both, yeah, especially
Okay.
like your insight on how
Okay.
important it is when you're evaluating.
So I'll start with stating a very obvious fact, and I would like everyone to really understand this and take this to your heart. There's only one job per person, okay? And if you don't get that job, it doesn't mean anything, okay? Of course, it means that you don't get the job, but it doesn't mean that you're not good, you're not sufficient, your research is not meaningful or important, okay? Because sometimes it's not even about you. There are so many exogenous factors. So just please understand that. Second, I think before the job talk, and also I would like to place the job talk within the context of a campus visit. Okay, so it's not like a job talk only. Job talk is one of the important steps for anyone to get a job. Okay, again, understand the process. You apply for a position. There's a committee, right? A hiring committee. They create like a rubric. Then they have come up with a long list of say 10 candidates. Then they cut down that long list to a short list of 3 to 5 candidates. And then they want to invite 3 to 5 candidates to campus. That's why we call this a campus visit. And again, depending on the field, right? Because in some fields, this is an interview. In other fields, it may be called like a pilot teaching experience, right? Or they would just call like a lecture. But it's part of the campus visit, and you get to spend up to 3 days on a campus. You meet with graduate students, you meet with undergraduate students, you meet with faculty member, you meet with department chair, deans, you meet with the committee, and then this is the culminating experience, okay? If you are in a position to give a job talk, congratulations, that's great news. Why? Because they have already established you as a very strong candidate, and right, they have recognized your credentials. They like you, they respect you, they think that you're great. So and I'm now answering the question directly, and job talk is extremely important for you, because until your job talk, you don't have a face, right? You don't have a persona. Everything is theoretical on paper. So if you get a job talk offer, that means that you are very strong on paper, but you can come to to a campus, give a job talk and blow yourself, right? Bomb it or nail it. So job talk is in a way authentication, right? And validation of your scholarship and all those theoretical things. You put everything into perspective, flesh, right? A job talk is also, I see a job talk is a kind of test drive, right? So this is the person we're hiring, and now we want to see how this person might operate in the classroom context, right? What kind of a good neighbor this person might be, because, you know, I'm going to share with an office, right? Or this person next will be next to my office, will attend department events, college events, right? Socialize. So it's really important for you to understand that, you know, job talk is your biggest chance, okay, to shine, to kind of illustrate, demonstrate, to showcase your skills, your teaching, your resource. But before job, now I move to the second question. I think the first thing is first task on your end is, now you've received the invitation, just go back to the job description, right? What kind of a job is this? Because your job talk will be determined by our job description. Because if it's a research position, right, you have to craft a talk accordingly. If it's a teaching position, that's a whole different scenario, right? If your job involves working with undergraduates, if your job involves creating a lab, if your job involves starting field work or starting a new lab, see, I mean, you should be able to incorporate and integrate all of these aspects. That's why you go back to your job description, understand and prepare. And one thing I would absolutely do, must do, take this, take a mental note, reach out to the department chair or hiring committee member and ask, okay, who is my audience, right? What's the venue? How big, how small? Like, who is going to attend my talk? Because if they say general public, well, now you're in a completely different setting, because you have to communicate your research to a general audience. If they say only the department members, that's different, because you're talking to professors. If they say department members, graduate students, undergraduate students, and some public, now you have to walk that very fine balance, right? So in that sense, so this is the overall context that I would like to present and maybe build on this. Next, Jessica.
Thank you. I'm also like always taking notes as I'm like listening, but we had a couple of questions come in and they're all pretty similar. So I grouped them together, or I'm grouping questions together. And I believe you started to tap on this just now as well. So they're asking, what should go in your job talk? Do you discuss your dissertation research, or do you address the job talk? And you started to tap on this a bit, Dr. Tatissi. And if you have any thoughts as well, Dr. Conrad.
Sure. Let me take a step back. Okay, like I said, in light of your job description, right, you know that this position is a teaching position and you're going to be teaching 4 and 4, right? That's your teaching load. You know that, you know, that's what they're interested in, right? They're trying to hire a teacher, so you have to showcase your teaching philosophy, right? You have to demonstrate them that, you know, you have the right pedagogic approach to teaching in that specific field, and it's basically, right, rehearsal. So one thing that I say, like, don't do is read your job talk. That's, again, that's not going to help you, because everybody will be, right, they'll be scratching their head and like, okay, if we hire this person, this person would be reading, right, the lectures. No, so you have to be like a natural teacher, right, really good. But if your job is like 3-pronged, right, teaching, research, and outreach, you're expected to work with graduate students, that's then a very, very balanced act, right? Dissertation. Obviously, your dissertation is already going to be relegated to your rear view mirror, right? Because you've already done it and they've seen it, right? They know that you completed and they liked you and they invited you, right? So you should always just recap your dissertation research and talk about the implications of your dissertation research in your formation and within the broader context of your future research agenda. But remember, they didn't hire you because they want you to repeat your dissertation research. They hired you, or they want to hire someone because they would like to have this very dynamic new person to contribute to the department's agenda, research agenda, and to advance the department's mission. So in that sense, I also highly recommend looking at all the faculty, right? All your future colleagues, right? Look at their research interests, look at the classes, right? And talk about these. Talk about your past research and how it's contributed to your current research agenda. Then talk about your future research. And if you're expected to work with graduate students, talk about in what ways you can actually incorporate graduate students into your, for example, when I gave my job talk, I talked about my archaeological dig site in Turkey, and I told the department open that, you know, like, I'm very happy to take students, right, to Turkey. And I also said I was looking forward to starting a new zooarchaeology lab, and I was very also excited to work with graduate students and undergraduate students. Yeah, I mean, and everybody knows, okay, that's what they want to hear, right? So yeah, dissertation is important, but build on it. Also show them in what ways you can synergize with certain department members. For example, in anthropology, there are biological, cultural, and archaeological anthropologists. So I remember talking about, you know, like direct, maybe potential for collaborations with other colleagues. But make sure that, you know, you also keep it kind of open and general, so it doesn't look like you're only talking about one faculty, right? So I'm just gonna stop here to give Conrad a chance to chime in.
Yeah, thank you. I think you covered a lot of it, or most of it. So my experience is mostly with academic kind of research positions. But yeah, for my position here at UNLV, I had to cover a few different things. The job title incorporated teaching, of course, research, having graduate students, mentoring undergraduate and graduate students. And then I also had to take over and handle a research facility. And that's a research facility that actually takes in external samples and works with clients and actually has a client base and makes its own money within the university. So getting all that in there is really hard. And so you really want to focus on the big major points. For the teaching aspect, I just wanted to make sure I can bring along everybody with me as I talked and went through concepts. So being able to take, so normally if I gave a talk at a conference that's specialized, I would jump straight into, assume that everyone knows the basics and jump straight into it. You can't really do that here because it's the students there and it's a diverse faculty. So you want to make sure everyone can stay on board and you can break concepts up from the beginning and then work them up to where the unknown was and then how you addressed it. If you had a lot of research coming into it, like I did, I don't necessarily feel like you have to present your most recent research. I would focus on your biggest research. So I had like a Nature Communications paper. That's what I was going to focus on because that was a big research project. And so just give them what you think is going to be the most enticing and cooling and the biggest kind of advantage. Then after I went through kind of all this, talking about my research for like 40 minutes, I then, you know, gave some conclusions and then I went into how, okay, here's the future research projects. They use a lot of the same basic components that we mentioned here, you know, and they use the labs that are in this building. You know, yeah, like you said, look at the faculty, also look at the resources in the department. If there are other people that you can work with, you want to just kind of mention that, bring them along. That's good for your cover letter as well when you're applying. But I talked about future projects, what proposals I already had in, what proposals I planned on bringing in, how it fits into UNLV. Then I went into a quick 2 slides about what my vision is for a 5-year vision, basically for the lab and from the department. And I think that was probably the keyest aspect. That's what I left them with, was not only do I have research and everything, but I'm constantly thinking about the future, and I'm thinking about the future with, you know, you people in the audience. So I think that's kind of key. You don't want to say you have the job, obviously. absurd. But you want to kind of say, if I had the job, I know what I'm going to be doing with it. And I think people don't like people when they are wishy-washy and uncertain what they want with their future. They want to know they're hiring someone who can take care of themselves and, be a benefit.
That's really great. You both mentioned looking up your colleagues or the department and your goals that you have for the department. How important is it to mention um, or to demonstrate rather a familiarity, excuse me, familiarity with the institution, the culture of the university that you want to work at? That's something also that we want to make sure that we address.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely critical. Remember, academia is as sociopolitical as it is scholarly, right? So, and it's a very rugged terrain. So you need to be able to navigate that politically too. So I can give you some, to tell you some anecdotes. I remember like a candidate coming and telling me like, oh, I love your work in Alaska. I'm like, I don't work in Alaska, right? And then I remember some candidates asking like, who's the department chair? See, I mean, all of these questions are communicating what? Like you have no clue what you're doing. You haven't even checked the department. You don't even know who the department chair is. I mean, these are all just, yeah, these are all going to lead to a lot of shaking out. So, like I said, know your audience, prepare, look it up. I remember downloading the entire department's website and going through people's CVs and publications. So when I have one-on-one with faculty colleagues, future faculty colleagues, I can have a meaningful conversation. Oh, I've read your paper in Journal of Archaeological Science. I really like how you use that like new design or new technique, right? See, that's a conversation technique and people feel respected. So the last thing you don't want is come across as unprofessional or cocky or arrogant, right? And in my case, I was coming from Harvard, and you may think that it was an advantage, but it also was a disadvantage because people think that you're a Harvard guy, you're a jerk, right? You are not necessarily very nice and kind. So I had to be like really convincing that, right? I would be a good colleague. I would be respectful. I would work with undergraduate students, graduate students. In that sense, it's really important for you to be professional at all times. Don't let your guard off even for a second. And remember, it's not only job talk because you can undo a lot of good things during other times. You're going to be on a campus for 3 days. Okay. So again, your demeanor, right? Your interactions with students, you should be consistent. And I remember students reporting to us, oh, this person didn't want to talk with us. Or when we asked this person questions, he or she just dismissed us or like didn't show any interest, right? So again, so you're actually marketing yourself to multiple stakeholders, right? Dean, department chair, faculty members, graduate students, undergraduate students. Again, your demeanor and even like little things, silly things that you think would be important will be very, very important. I remember one case in which many people talked about a person's job talk, but they were not talking about this person's research. They were talking about why that person dressed in a very particular way, because I remember upstairs he was very formal, but downstairs he wore this really tight pants and no socks, like showing, right? So, see, I mean, why do you do that, right? Again, be on the conservative side. Of course, every field is different. So understand the etiquette in your field and don't take anything for granted and prepare and again, be professional at all times. Look everybody up. Know who the dean is. Look at university's demographics. Look at department structure. And also there are very easy ways for you to understand. If all the faculty members are listed by rank, you know that maybe that department has an hierarchical culture where, as opposed to a department where people are listed alphabetically. So if you don't see any graduate student names or pictures on the website, you know that, maybe that's not very important, right? Or if you have a page per graduate student, you know that, graduate program is very important for department. So you need to actually really, really, really dig deep into the department colleagues and everything.
This is really great. I'm taking like so many notes just because I always like to give, you know, top like feedback that I found very interesting and significant, right? One question came in earlier, but I didn't get to it because we were like on a flow in a different direction, but just jumping gears a bit here and now looking at our actual presentation. Is a PowerPoint or a slide deck really important, or can it be seen as a distraction? What are your thoughts on the actual presentation?
Dr. Conrad?
Yeah. Well, I don't know what a slide deck is, so maybe I'm too young. I don't know. But PowerPoint was required for pretty much any academic talk at this point. If I mean, if you had the confidence to get up there and write on the blackboard, I don't know if it would go well, but it'd be interesting. But yeah, definitely PowerPoint. I wouldn't. Definitely, I wouldn't bring anything like written. Like you don't want to read from anything. I think that shows you don't know what you're doing, and you don't want to memorize everything because then you're stiff and it sounds like you just memorized everything. What I always try to do is when I have a slide, this is the tips I was given. I always memorize the first sentence I'm going to say when that slide comes up. Then I know, okay, I can flow from there naturally. And then it sounds like this is me. This is coming from me. This is my work. You know, it's less like I'm nervous and I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm just memorizing things. But yeah, PowerPoints are good. You can put some, don't put things that are too distracting. I put some like animations for models because it does get some oohs and ahs, which is always nice. But if your research doesn't have it, don't force things in there. Yeah, so but PowerPoint is the only option I would say. And then for the previous question, I'll just say real quick two things. One, when I got the job, like a creepy stalker, I made a spreadsheet and I put all the department people and I went through their research and I kind of figured out what they say, just because you want to know it. And then when you go into the talk, what you want to, when you're going into an interview with them or speak with them, you want to show that you know their research, but you don't want to act like you know it more than them or like you know it really well. So you go in with like the idea, not like, you know, oh, you did X and X, and I think that was pretty cool and whatever. Just going like, oh yeah, you do like Martian volcanism, which is like the coolest subject. Tell me what you're up to now. You know, something like that that allows them then to speak to you. You want to kind of show that you think they're cool and they should explain things to you. The worst thing I've seen is like when people sometimes will come in with the idea like, what's good is I know you work so much, I'm going to point out where I think you're wrong or something. That is horrendous. But people do that in academia. It comes naturally. Don't do that ever. It's just nobody wants to start off a conversation with like, I think you should have done X in the X paper. It's like, okay, good. I think you should have a job somewhere at the university. Like, yeah, don't want to go in like that. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, Levent covered everything for that.
And I want to add to the PowerPoint question.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I fully agree with Kevin in that, yeah, you should have you should come across as like natural, right? This is your stuff. You know it, you own it. So you shouldn't read, never. And I also agree that, you know, you don't just come across as like you're just trying to, you're reciting your research, right? Your paper. So it should be very natural, right? The tone, conversational. And like Kevin, I also used a trick. So every slide I presented had a kind of like header. And actually that gave me, for example, you know, the correlation between X and Y indicates, right? So always, I always looked at every slide and I always ask my, and again, I advise that you do the same thing. So every slide is a story in its own right, and ask yourself, okay, what is it that I would like to communicate using the slide or using the graphic or visuals, right? Within the scheme of all the affairs. So if you identify just phrases or catchy, right, words to just get you talk about that, right? Mnemonic devices, I think that's very useful. And again, PowerPoint, I think is the norm, but I've seen people experiment with things like Prezi. I think I would call it very bold and daring because, you know, you rely on the internet connection. If something goes wrong, then you're toast, right? Oops. Because, you know, Prezi and all the other I think people are using Canva. I really recommend against it. Just be safe. And again, like Kevin said, I agree that too many slides, too many animations, right? Yeah, will distract. Keep it simple, visually appealing. And also, good tip, after your last slide, have a blank slide and have extra slides. Anticipate, okay, what other questions I may receive from the audience. I don't want to get into it unless they ask, right? Because it's maybe tangential. But I had that, for example, I had like 5 other slides, like graphs, statistics. I don't want to just throw them. But then people asked, and then you can joke like, oh, I anticipated this question. Here you go. Then pull that slide, go to the end, and that also shows that you're engaging, you prepare. And another idea, always prepare. I remember giving 3 mock job talks to my colleagues in graduate school. And another great idea, always go find junior people in your department, okay? See, I mean, I may help you, I may talk to you, but I think junior people, right, junior faculty members, they're the ones who just survived the process just like a year ago. So they are your go-to people. Just go to them, show your materials to them, and then get their advice. I think that'll really help you.
Yeah, while we're talking about that, I will say I agree. Definitely practice it, and if you can, like I gave a practice talk with my advisors, and then practice talk with my graduate student peers. Try to do it separately because you'll get different feedback. A and B, you can give it 2 chances to do it. You can do it with one, fix it, do it with the other, and then yeah, younger faculty. No offense to the older faculty, much better. Like when I talked, I had 2 advisors. One was younger, one was much older, and the other one's like, yeah, you have a great paper, you'll get a job. And then 36 rejected applications over 3 years. He had no idea what he was talking about. He was he got a job back in the early 80s where all you had to do is have a degree and be a white man and you can get a job in academia. Now it was like a lot more competitive. Like at this stage, like I tell if a student wants to do a PhD with me, I let them know statistically speaking you won't get a job in academia. It's just universities hire maybe 1 person a year at most. They put out 30 grad students or something. You know how the math doesn't add up, but it's possible. It takes a lot of effort.
I really like that. I used to teach public speaking, and so I know the importance of not reading off a pre-written speech, right? To speak extemporaneously. But I really like the tips that you each gave. That Dr. Conrad, you would at least memorize your first line so that you wouldn't freeze, right? Or you wouldn't like go blank. And that really then got the ball rolling for you to be confident and like know what you're talking about, right? And how you suggested, Dr. Tatissi, where each of your headers were kind of like either something catchy to bring the audience into this new slide, right? I know a strategy that some students do also when presenting is ask the question, right? That then you have to answer. You're asking it to yourself, so you step up and answer it, but you're also asking it for the audience to consider, and that's how we reel them in. We did have a question. It seems to be a theme today and the last like 15 plus months. Any tips for how you would give a job talk virtually? Have either of you sat in on a recent job talk in our new virtual settings?
Kevin?
No, I don't believe I have. I mean, I've given talks virtually, and it's going to be a lot harder just because it's never as good. You're not going to bring yourself as forward. So I don't know what's a good tip for giving an academic job virtually, job talk. I would do similar things to you want to be prepared, like same as in person. You want to be as clear as possible. You want to test run things. So if you have shoddy internet, try to see if you can go to your office or something and give it there. Make sure the internet's good, cameras are good. Because yeah, this is the only visual of you is going to be this talk, and then if you're freezing up constantly and everything, it's just going to look bad. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. So make sure everything's clean, clear, internet's good. Your slides, you're not going to have a big screen, so make sure you have low amount of text, very large figures. Focus on just the graphics, and then practice with using, PowerPoint and a few other programs. You can have not PowerPoint, like your mouse cursor, you can turn it into a marker. So I actually mark up the screen a lot when I give presentations now virtually, because that's something I can do. And you can highlight things by circling it instead of actually just saying, look to the left or pointing at it. But otherwise, I have no experience with it, so I can't give any really good tips.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's going to be really a completely different experience, right? Because the idea about a job talk is to have multiple stakeholders interact, right? Because again, you're inviting a future hire to your campus, and everybody gets together, and then there's this interaction, there's this synergy, and you gauge the potential of this person's contribution to the department. So virtually, it is very restrictive, but I always see opportunities in challenges. So think about this. As much as it sounds like it's threatening, but also see the silver lining. What is that? You can actually rehearse it. You can record yourself, right? And then watch yourself, and then so you have a much better idea, right? So I would most definitely have a colleague or peer or your spouse, family member, just stand, right? And then engage with them as if you're teaching this lecture to them like real human beings, and record yourself. And also another good advantage, you can write your text in a very, very conversational tone and create like a prompter using a tablet, put it somewhere natural, and read it from there. And remember, I mean, this is the WebEx ecosystem, right? Your presentation will be full screen, and you're gonna live in a little rectangle in the corner of the screen. So, and your eye movements, see, I would be like reading everything right now. You wouldn't tell the difference, right? As long as I just move a little bit. So in that sense, I think it comes with certain advantages too. So you can really prepare and nail it, right? I think that's the advantage. But I agree with Kevin that you should do a great job with your presentation, and then make sure that again, in the real world scenario, you have a white screen. In this scenario, you have a small screen. People may be watching you from a laptop, even from a tablet. So you have to be more efficient in terms of using good contrast, background, and text color, like text size, and minimize your use of text, and communicate more verbally, and using graphics and visual aids, not text, minimize text. That would be my advice too.
And to build on what Levent was saying, actually, I think, so I was thinking about it while we were talking about it. It's a great idea. If you're doing the faculty interviews and you're just jumping from people to people and talking about them, beforehand, make a Word document with questions and topics that might be good. Just kind of keep it on a separate monitor or print it out. And then anytime you're kind of losing conversation, you look over and you're like, oh, how about X? I think, use that to your advantage. That would be actually nice. And if you're interviewing in person, do not pull out a card and be like, hey, here's a question.
Cecilia asked, do you have any samples of a desired PowerPoint? And I dropped in the chat. It's something that my colleagues have heard me say a lot, and I tend to share. I used to share it in my classes, How to Avoid Death by PowerPoint. It's a TED Talk, and he gives really great advice. Dr. Levant was sharing some of these points already, black or dark background for that contrast. One
I also
slide. Yeah.
invite everyone to reach out, because here within the Office of Undergraduate Research, actually, we teach webinars to undergraduate researchers how to craft presentations. So I'm more than happy to share. I have PDFs just illustrating important aspects. Yeah, I'll type my email address. Please reach out. I'm happy to share.
Great. That's very, very kind of you. So with by reaching out to Dr. Tatissi. Also, like he said, he can share PDFs or slides, or there's workshops that help one craft a type presentation.
And graduate students can attend our workshops too, so just feel free.
Thank you. So I wanted to wrap up just so that we have time to transition our boot campers back to their last hour of writing, and really wanted to open it up to each of you. Any points or areas that we didn't get to, but that you found or you find to be extremely important that you want to leave our boot campers with when it comes to preparing for an academic job talk? Any final thoughts?
Kevin.
One key thing, I mean, this is about the academic job talk, but to get the job and actually get to the interview, one of the most important things is you need to write every aspect. So for my academic job, I had to write the cover letter, you have to write the CV, you have to do a research statement, an education statement, a diversity statement, some statement about how I'm going to run the Nigel, which is huge. But if you have to basically design every statement around the job, specific to the job, mention faculties, mention how the department works, mention how you fit into it, and how you fit the call perfectly. And I think that's something I always got to stress. If you have like a generic cover letter and you send it to multiple places, you're not going to get a response from any of those places. That's just something, I mean, it might work maybe with industry, but even with industry jobs, you want to really, every single application has to be tailored to the specific job call. So that's one big tip I have to make sure to get out there.
I couldn't agree more. Just understand that this is a long process. It's never too early, and not one aspect is more important than other. Yeah, it starts with your CV. So make sure that you have a very sharp CV, and then your cover letter is absolutely, absolutely important. So again, learn how to write a cover letter, and again, approach your faculty members, both junior and senior, and get feedback from them. And again, we have a career service here, Office of Career Services. They also make sure to schedule an appointment, like run your CV, run your cover letter. Okay, it's very important. And also be prepared. Let me tell you an anecdote. I mean, I was just writing these applications and sending them out, and I was thinking that, okay, if I have a chance, one of these schools would be like calling me, like say in January or February, right? Because it's November. So I submitted my first application and I started writing others. 2 weeks later, I received a call from a university. I think it was Georgia State University, it's like a university from Georgia. They told me that they liked my research, and again, but I had not even looked them up yet because I was thinking that, it was like very early. So we had the assistant professor who were phone interviewing me was really, really excited and passionate. And I had nothing to say because he asked me, do you have any questions? What are your thoughts? I just froze because I thought that, I was going to write all my applications and then prepare later. So I literally bombed my first interview and just knew that it was gone, and it was gone. So I didn't even make it to the next phase. So the point is, please start early, okay? And again, by early, I don't mean, your final year, right? You start even in your first couple of, even before you're an ABD. And also understand, your degree, be it MA or a doctoral degree, doesn't matter. It is more than your dissertation, okay? Most people just focus on the dissertation. That's the tangible, right? Everybody expects that, but there are a lot of other intangibles. Going to conferences, networking, writing, applying for grants, branding yourself and getting your name out there, right? Doing voluntary work, professional organization membership, getting your portfolio ready, your CV, right? It is very important. Like Kevin said, once you get this, get to that stage and once you submit, right, you need to be ready to go. But remember, job talk is only one element. It's important, but other aspects are equally important, because without the other right elements, you're not going to get the job talk stage. So please prepare, 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 be professional. Don't take anything for granted, and do your homework. And then don't worry, because the rest is beyond your control. Just do your part, and that's it.
Do your homework because the rest is beyond your control. What a great way to wrap it up. I did take some notes and I want to summarize them for all our boot campers today. Portions that I think really stood out to me. Great pieces of advice from Dr. Conrad and Dr. Tatissi. Tailor not just the academic job talk, but your entire application. As Dr. Tatissi said over and over again, it's a long process. Be prepared and reach out and ask, who is my audience, so that you can prepare. Look up future colleagues and look up what their research is, and link that to what your future research interests are, so that they can envision how you will collaborate together as colleagues. Keep your presentation simple, visually appealing. Reach out to Dr. Tatissi. He was kind enough to share his email address. He has some PDFs and references on how to build a strong presentation. Have an extra slide and anticipate questions. Have extra slides regarding anticipated questions that your audience may ask. Have a catchphrase or ask yourself a question for each slide. Talk about your vision for the department, as Dr. Conrad mentioned. Think of the long term. Understand the etiquette of your field. Know your institution, the population, the climate. This is ultimately the place that you are saying you want to become your new work home. So market yourself and to multiple stakeholders. Speak extemporaneously, be prepared, but don't read out loud. There's only one job per person, as Dr. Tatissi said, so don't give up. There's so many variables that go into it. You are obviously strong enough on paper because you got invited to the academic job talk portion, but now this is just a mutual test drive to see if you are a good fit for them and if they are a good fit for you. Thank you again so much, Dr. Conrad and Dr. Tatissi, for sharing your time and your advice with our boot campers today.
No problem. Thanks for inviting.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you, Jessica. It's my pleasure. And you've done such a great job capturing everything very precisely and effectively.
All of your great advice, yours and Dr. Conrad's great advice. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Bye, everyone.
And good luck, everyone.
Good luck. Yeah. Reach out.